right, guys, what's up? I'm joined here with Matt Sinkovitz, and you're in Pennsylvania. Is that right?
That's right, brother.
Awesome. And Matt and I, we got connected. I'm not sure how we got connected. I think it was through Order of Man, that group with Ryan Mickler.
Yep.
But Matt's got a cool thing going, and I reached out to him. I'm like, dude, I need you to come in here, talk to some of these guys, and because you're getting ready to launch a 5-day little course. And, I think that some of these guys might be interested in that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And tell us a little about yourself, a little bit of background.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Matt Sinkovitz, and I'm a porn abstinence accountability coach and coach men in their freedom from pornography. And I run a community on Facebook called Making Peace with Porn. It's a private men's only community. So yeah, I'm a porn abstinence coach and got into this work as a result of my 20 plus year compulsive relationship with porn. I'm now in my 30s, and like many of us, got involved with porn, my early teens, and dealt with it for a long time, and found my way out, and I've always been involved in personal and spiritual development and kind of in this coaching and spiritual guidance world. And those two things kind of came together, and I find myself here, and I've been helping men out in this field specifically for over a year now. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, with your spirituality background in the porn, those two things, they kind of conflict, don't they?
I found that they did, man. I found that in my journey, porn was really it was doing a couple things. It was really creating I think a ceiling in terms of my spiritual evolution. I kept bumping my head, I felt like, and it also was really, I feel like, conflicting in terms of my calling in life, my life purpose, my sense of leadership, my sense of integrity. I was moving, as I was continuing on in my work. I also do work in interfaith chaplaincy and ministry work in prisons and hospitals. And I was finding, as I was doing that work and also work with other men, that my relationship with porn was out of alignment, out of integrity in my life. And I wasn't feeling like I was showing up in integrity in the leadership positions that I was in. So as a result of the work that I was moving into, I was feeling called to higher and higher levels of living, and was finding that porn was, again, creating a ceiling in terms of my growth, but just wasn't in alignment for me.
You make some good points there. And it's crazy how I feel the same way. Before I started Structure U, I went through a long process because I struggled with pornography as well. And I think that most of the men, if we're going to be completely honest with ourselves, we can say it's probably a problem, and especially if you're a married man, it's not fair to your spouse to be viewing these things, and I've shared my story before, but with my wife and the way that she was brought up, and her, with her father, not necessarily giving, and I don't want to say not giving her attention, but not telling her, you're beautiful, you're just an amazing little girl. She suffered with that as far as like her confidence level. And so for me to say, hey, wife, I struggle in this area, like it was like I was just throwing a hammer down, and that's like the worst thing I could have done to her. And it really affected our marriage. But, like you said, I felt like I had a calling to lead these guys. And like you said, I was bumping my head on that ceiling. I can't go any higher because here I am. I'm not going to be a hypocrite telling these guys one thing if I'm not doing it myself. Like I have to live this lifestyle myself. And, it's been a journey, and I'm almost 2 years on it now. And, life's never been better. So, but also, like, you probably thought at one point, like, did you ever think this is my normal with your porn habits?
Oh man, well, I don't think I ever wanted to accept that it was my normal, because I think all my life, at least once I entered a certain stage of awareness and I was kind of conscious of the issues that porn was causing in my life, or kind of recognizing or waking up to the truth for me that porn wasn't cool for me. I didn't want to ever think that it was my normal, but I definitely always had this lingering, deep-seated fear that, man, am I ever going to be free of this? Because porn is one of those things that first of all, we deal with in the shadows of life, in the darkness of life, in secret.
Mm,
We deal with
mm.
it oftentimes very alone. And it was one of those things, there were periods when I could establish a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months of abstinence, but I would always go back despite my true, sincere determination not to. I would always end up slipping back and ending up back there at day zero. And anybody that's a porn addict knows what day zero feels like. It's always the worst. You've let yourself down again and you're dealing with all that stuff again, So I was always afraid, like, man, am I ever going to be able to really kick this thing? So I think that was my experience.
Yeah. And I think that what you say there, going back to day zero, we feel I've failed. I failed, and then how many times does a guy fail before he just says, I'm giving up? But I think if you were, like you said, if we're on that path, like me personally, like I lived it for a long time, but in the back of my head, I always kind of knew, but also I was being a guy. I was being normal. I was out drinking with my buddies, smoking dope here and there, getting drunk, like talking vulgar, even talking negatively and vulgar to my spouse, which I was like, wow, and at all, I think that some of that even came as a result from watching porn. Like you see these things, you hear the way these people are talking, like the funny jokes that we talk, and I was like, I'm so disrespectful to my spouse. Like, this isn't fair. I felt bad for her, but it's just crazy. And I don't even know where I was going with that. I thought I had a story, but I don't.
It was a good show.
Fair. It wasn't fair to her, but yeah. But
We were talking about kicking it, once and for good, or
oh
new
yeah.
normal.
Once you go back to day zero and you feel like a failure. But I also think that if you're on the path of I'm not going to give up, even if you have a slip here and there, or even if you look at something you shouldn't look at, but you can say, hey, whatever day it is, I don't care. I'm back in the saddle. I'm moving forward. It's kind of having that mindfulness of that. But it's a different story if you just continue to do it. And is it really a commitment that you're geared towards?
Yeah, I think for me, man, like just being my normal and just giving up on ever being able to be free of it was not even an option, because for me, I've recognized, anybody that has a relationship with porn, especially modern day pornography with high speed internet, and it's right on your phone, and it's just, you could literally just spend like the rest of your life probably watching endless new porn clips. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with that, the extreme nature of the genres tend to increase. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, I was like, where do I end up in 10 years? You know what I mean? I don't want to be a 40, almost 50-year-old man, potentially single, still having this porn addiction, looking at stuff that doesn't align with what I really want for myself and what I truly desire. That having this relationship with this thing that I would be ashamed if people knew what was going on in my personal private life. So, for me, I was like, I'm gonna resolve this one way or the other. So I continued to get back on that path. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. And I think, and yeah, and too, I think with guys, it's easy for us to want to start something. I'm running this 22-day challenge now, and it's like if guys don't show up in the morning or they don't show up 2 mornings in a row, it's very easy to quit. And it's the same thing with whatever it is, if it's alcoholism. And I think that, being in your line of work, do you think that all these things they kind of tie together with like addictions to different things or not?
I do, man. Our work is based around a lot of mindfulness. So it's not just to me about grit and determination and will, it's also about creating awareness around what is our relationship with pornography? What was the root of it? Where did it begin? How have we been using it to cope? What needs have we actually been attempting to meet through pornography? So again, we take this mindfulness. I'm also a mindfulness counselor, a mindfulness based approach to abstinence from pornography, and a lot of it takes a really close look at our relationship with it. And in doing so, I've recognized that porn is just our go-to. For some people, it's drugs. For some people, it's alcohol. For some people, it's cigarettes. For some people, it's food. So a lot of times we just have this compulsive relationship with porn or something else, and we're attempting to meet a need, but it's not always sexual. We're grasping at something.
Yes. And so in your line of work now, working with guys in this field, like, what is it usually? Does each guy have like a childhood moment where something stood out? Do they have daddy issues? Do they have, rejection issues or is it a stress relief? Like What's the biggest key factor you think?
Oh man. Well, again, that's a lot of the work, and I think it's different for every person. In the work that we do with the guys, so much of what we're doing is really self-inquiry and self-reflection. So much of the work that the guys are doing, they're going in and doing a lot of their own deep uh, reflection as to, where did their relationship with porn originate? How are they maybe using it to cope as children? Maybe they were in an unsafe environment. Maybe they weren't getting a lot of love. Maybe they were feeling rejected as children, either from their parents or from the opposite sex, or whatever it may have been. So maybe it was a trauma, and so they're hypersexualized now. So I think it's really different for every man. But as we can identify now, as I've identified in my own journey, and I've had greater insight just in connecting with other men, a lot of it is just disconnection, loneliness, fear, anxiety. Sometimes it's low energy. It's just a low energy thing. It can be depression. It could be a sense of hopelessness in life. It is a big one. Sometimes it's just a desire for stimulation. Guys are just bored, you know what I mean? And again, some people reach for a cigarette. Some people reach for pornography. So some people are just attempting to scratch an itch, so to speak. So again, I think it really does come down to case by case, but I would say there's a typical probably 10 or 15 spectrum, things that we're attempting to meet, or maybe are at the root of the relationship.
Yep. I like that. Now, with that being said, as far as like, if it's boredom, if you're looking for that, like extra, just that little pump, because I know that, so I used to struggle with gambling too. I remember walking into a casino and I could, the physiology of my body, or I don't know if that's how you say that, but I could feel like my internal, like organs, like I got nervous. The anxiety was building up, and it's like all these lights and the sounds, and I, viewing pornography, like I would go through stints where I would stop for a long time, but then when I'd come back, I would get that same feeling. Like, is it just that complete dopamine dump that's rushing my body, and that's what you're getting?
I think that's a big part of it. And it's interesting that you mentioned the anxiety and the nervousness of walking into the casino. So one of the books that we study in our program is a book called Your Brain on Porn, which really takes a look at the psychology and really what's going on physiologically, in the brain on a neural level. And again, I mentioned earlier about how, especially in today's era, the genres of pornography tend to be to grow in the nature of extremity, right? Yeah. So it tends to grow more and more extreme the longer we stay involved. And it's really interesting. A lot of guys end up looking at really bizarre taboo genres of pornography that really don't align with probably what they want, like, at a base level. But it is because it is so extreme, it does almost induce this anxiety in many cases, and this nervousness, and there's an excitement in that. You know what I mean? So if you look at the brain chemistry, a lot of times it's the extreme nature of the genre. It's the excitement that we get from it that draws to these extreme genres of porn.
Yeah, that's cool. And so many of guys, and I think that if you've struggled with any sort of a porn addiction at all, or just wanting to stop, you say, okay, well, this will be my last time doing it. This will be my last time. How come, why do we reach that moment, and how do we alleviate that? How do we get past that and say, we're done for good? Like, what are, if you can give us, you're an expert on this. You can give us maybe 2 or 3 tips on getting on the straight and narrow. Like, what kind of tips you got?
Yeah, brother. Well, we've all had that conversation with ourselves, right? This is the last time. But for me, I think it was the realization that there has to actually be a last time. You know what I mean? Because if there's not a last time, I'm going to continue to have this conversation with myself, and I'm going to grow to be an older and older man maintaining this relationship. And I'm like, there has to be a last time. So I think that was a big awakening for me, is like, there has